Well, it's a massacre that occurred in the western North Carolina mountains in January of 1863. And in a way, I think it's symbolic of a lot of what was happening in western North Carolina, because Madison County was pretty equally divided between Union sympathizers and Confederate sympathizers. And this kind of came to a culmination in Shelton, Laurel, when the 64th Confederate Regiment came into the valley, rounded up a number of Union sympathizers in Shelton, Laurel, took them out about a mile away into a field and killed them, including a 12-year-old boy, several grandfathers. Well, there'd been a raid into other parts of outside of Shelton, Laurel, and the people inside Shelton, Laurel were blamed for it. A raid where I think some salt was stolen, and I think just a sense of getting back at Union sympathizers within the county, certainly, being seen as traitors, or as they were called, homemade Yankees at that time. And I suspect some of it had to do with the tension between the more rural people in the county and the people within Marshall, within the towns. And I think there's a little bit of that. Two Confederate leaders, Keith and Allen, were the commanders. Allen's family had been harassed by some Union sympathizers in the county not too long before this, actually blamed the death of one of his children who were sick at the time when some Union sympathizers came into his house on these people. So I think you start to see a more personal vendetta here. Allen actually wasn't there, but his one of his subordinate, Keith, was in the fields, and he's the one that gave the order. Ultimately, yes, they were denounced by the Confederacy, as a matter of fact, but at the same time, they were never punished. They both, never served time, or there was never anything where they actually were punished because of it. To me, the single most disturbing aspect of the Shelton Laurel Massacre is that the youngest victim was also the last one to die, David Shelton. He was 12 years old, and he was taken out there with his father and an older brother, and obviously his other relatives. And he had been shot, and I mean, what's interesting about that is that when they were lined up, you wonder if somebody just didn't want to shoot him, because they actually hit him, but they didn't really seriously wound him. I think they hit his arm at first. And he saw all these other men killed, and when it was over and he was the last one alive, he said, "You have killed my brothers and my father. Please let me go home to my mother. I will I will forgive you this." And then they went and killed him anyway. It's one of the most troubling aspects of humanity, that people who very often know each other commit some of the most horrendous crimes against each other. We've seen this in Nazi Germany, we've seen it in Rwanda, Kosovo, and to me this is a microcosm of what's happened all over the world, where people have lived together for generations. And this was the case in Shelton, Laurel, because the 64th was almost all people who had grown up and lived in Madison County as well. So they were killing their neighbors. They were killing people that they knew. But I think it's a reminder to us about sometimes how thin the veneer of civilization is. How quickly the dogs of war can be unleashed, and when they are unleashed, how we can't bring them back.